It's 8 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. We got a little rain today. There's still a lot of clouds in the sky. But a little less than a quarter inch in the afternoon. I just moved the cows to a new cell. This would be the third cell in the second section, I believe. The temperature right now is probably low 70s, very humid. Pretty nice. Not at all hot, but very humid. I'm sweating very much. I came to the chicken coop and I discovered one of the birds was dead. Something bit her head off. And when I got there, the rigor mortis had not set in. So she was probably killed like in the last 30 minutes, just before I got there. I don't know what did it. I assume it's a big bird. Based on the damage, the wounds that the chicken had, it looks like some kind of pecking motion. I looked at the body for other wounds, but it looked like they just bit the head off. So she probably died quickly. Rooster's supposed to protect the chickens, but I might need to put dogs back there again. Maybe my 2 older dogs will become my chicken dogs, and the 2 younger puppies will be the sheep dogs. So I just need to somehow figure out how to keep the chicken dogs near the chickens. I do need a total cover to move the chickens in the pasture. Right now they're just working under the trees. I thought the trees would protect them, and it has protected them, but this was right in the middle of their nesting area at the base of a tree. And so that bird must have come in under the trees and hunted that chicken. So it kind of sickens me to think about that. On a lighter note, or semi-related note, one of my commentators was wondering what I would do with my ram lambs, and I said I'd probably eat one, because I've got 2 and I only need 1. And commentator wasn't too pleased with that idea. And I understand that for a lot of people, the way you've been raised, you were taught that, it's not good to hurt animals and stuff like that. And it's true, it's not. But when it comes to, it's raining slightly. When it comes to eating animals, I don't know how to explain this properly, but the first thing to consider is that eating other animals is part of the natural order of things. It's not any more unnatural than anything else in nature. And humans, often we consider ourselves apart from nature. Like nature is out there and whatever we have is not nature. And I was watching an old video about Greek philosophy and Greek, like the way they thought about things. And the Greeks saw nature as uncivilized, random, chaotic, the realm of the gods that are not happy and kind to you. And so the Greeks saw their cities and city life as ordered and civil, and the realm of the gods that actually liked humans and didn't want to torture them all the time. So there's that dichotomy of nature being the other and humans being, the thing. And nature is somehow not part of humanity, is the concept and the idea. And the way that I was raised, we were taught to respect nature, to learn her rules, but to participate in nature. We were taught to go outdoors. We were taught to learn how to camp and how to build fires. And hunting was something my father did. I never did, but hunting was something my father was raised on. He was raised in the West, for lack of a better word. Wyoming, Idaho, southern Washington, that area. And hunting was something you did. And I don't know that the people that hunted really understood entirely why they hunted. Was it a source of food? Yeah. Was it a source of entertainment? Yeah. Was it a chance to demonstrate your skills? Yeah. But the hunting itself, like the going out finding an animal, killing it and eating it, is extremely natural. That's exactly what happens in nature. And you're connecting with a part of your humanity that you may have been told since birth to ignore and to suppress, right? Part of my culture, part of my family's history, part of, I guess for lack of a better word, my tribe or my race, is we have always lived in nature. You go back to the earliest times, like when we were still pagan, our gods were gods of nature. And we lived in nature. We didn't live apart from nature. Hunting and wood gathering and cultivating the forest was all part of who we were. We didn't see nature as something separate. We saw nature as part of who we are. We saw ourselves as a critical part of nature, that our job was not just to observe and occasionally partake, but to manage and govern. The forests from my tribe and since medieval times were managed forests. They weren't just wild. The idea of leaving a forest alone to let nature run its course was important to us, because we knew that if we carefully manage the forest resources, we can produce even more food and more wildlife. And that's just part of what's into my nature as well. So when I see cows and when I see sheep and goats, yes, there are animals and they're in a way kind of our pets, but they're a critical component in managing the land that I've been able to accumulate. The stewardship is the word I like to think of, because one day I'll be dead and gone and somebody else will be running my land, whether my children or somebody I don't know. But I hold myself accountable to all of humanity, to the earth, and to God, to manage this resource the best I can. And when I discovered that cows were an essential component in growing life in fields and pastures, that you really can't build a productive piece of land without cattle and without sheep, I was excited, because that awakened something in me. Reminded me of, like, my grandpa every year would buy a cow, raise it, slaughter, and eat it. It's a cheap source of beef, but it's also part of who he was and how he was raised. The cows are part of us. And beef tastes really good, true, but there's more to it than just eating the meat. And when I think about where my beef was coming from, and I realized that I couldn't say in good faith that that animal was raised properly or productively. And when I realized that the modern practices of farming were destroying nature, they were poisoning the fields, they were ruining fertile fields, they were ruining it. We were cutting down forests, true, but we were replacing those forests with even less biodiverse environments. And then Greg Judy kind of woke me up to the fact that no, you don't need to destroy the land to raise cattle. In fact, cattle are an integral component in making the land productive. So that's one of the reasons why I raise cows. The other reason I raise cows is for food security. In times of famine, the cow will always be there, and if necessary to feed my family, I can slaughter and eat one. Same for the sheep. They're like, rather than storing and preserving food with salt and all kinds of chemicals, if I just manage my flock and herd possibly appropriately, I'll have all the food I ever need. And no matter what happens outside of this field, I will be fed, my family will be fed. But not just that, like, how much beef can you eat? One man can't eat a cow. Maybe if I eat beef every day, I could probably devour an entire cow, but it would take a year. But one of the reasons why I'm raising cows is so I can feed others in times of famine. You have to thin the herd anyway, because if the grass isn't growing very well, you can't support as many cows. So you have to get rid of the cows. And if you can't sell them because nobody wants them, well, you can harvest them, feed your family, feed the neighborhood, feed the entire village. You know, it's really a wise resource in terms of that. And the last component too is understanding our nutrition, we've had this idea for probably over 100 years now that there was some magical combination of chemicals that would give us everything we need and help us raise healthy and strong children. But as we've gone that route and pursued that philosophy, we discovered that no, pure food is not good food. There's other things in that food, not just chemicals, but there's other things in that food that are necessary for your body. And like one of the amazing things is that they've discovered that bacteria will go into the plant's roots from the soil, and then they will move those bacteria up to the seed, so that the seed that falls from that plant will have some of the bacteria of its mother plant. You know, and if you look at the process of reproduction, it's not just genetic code. You will not get a human or a cow or anything else with just genetic code. It's not enough. You need all the other things that come along with that. Mitochondria, for instance, are kind of known to be an essential component, but mitochondria is like other. It's not really part of the cell like the other parts of the cell are. It's like another thing, another organism that's living inside, and transferred from, you know, mother to daughter to child, and is an essential component of life. So there are things that happen when you eat meat that we don't even understand. You know, we could take that meat, we can dry it, we can jerk it, we can, you know, salt it and then eat it and all kinds of stuff. But eating the meat in its natural state is probably the most healthy thing you could do. And let me tell you, eating meat that is grown in a pasture like this tastes ridiculously good. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to buy my meat one day. I'm saying that because the meat that you eat in the store, I couldn't tell, but my dad used to tell me when I was a kid, like we'd say, hey, do you want a steak? And he's like, no, not really. And so we'd go to the store and buy a steak and we'd fry it up, you know, and cook it. And this is good steak. And my dad would take a few bites and say, yeah, it's okay, you know. And he said once, we said, why don't you like steak, Dad? He says, I like steak. I like beef. But the beef you buy in the store smells and tastes weird. And I think he once said it tastes like a feedlot, right? And now that I've had beef not grown on a feedlot, eating the beef that is grown on a feedlot tastes weird. It tastes gross in a way. And so, like, you have to experience eating beef that's grown in the right way. It's a different experience. And I want to experience that with the sheep. People are saying the sheep as well. There's a unique flavor. There's a kind of a gamey flavor that I've had with the sheep that I've had. But I want to experience eating a sheep that's been grown on my land, you know, for a number of reasons there, you know. So anyway, that's a long-winded way to say that we're part of nature and we can't consider nature as other. We have to include ourselves in the equation. And the life cycle of a cow ends with harvest, if it's done right. A cow shouldn't die of old age. It shouldn't die of disease. It should die from being harvested. Even the cows here. Once a cow stops giving me calves, she's hamburger, you know. And that's just the best way to manage things. And same thing for the sheep. If I get too many ram lambs, I have to eat them. If I get too many ewes, like my flock is built up and I have too many ewes, they have to be eaten. They have to go somewhere. And then the ewes and the lambs and the sheep and the cows and the heifers and the bulls and the steer, they all get to experience a few years of wonderful life, living in almost perfect conditions. Like, can you imagine a cow being happier than these cows are right now? Every day getting fresh feed, twice a day, fresh ground, being able to live in their natural environment and experience the things that their ancestors experienced for thousands of years. Blue sky, clouds, storms, rain, grass, ground, cold, warm, all those things. This is what a cow is intended to do, just like a blade of grass is intended to grow and then be eaten. You know, that's the point. Everything is consumed eventually. Of course, humans, you know, we bury ourselves when we die. You have to wonder, what is it that humans are supposed to be doing? Who's farming us? And what's our eventual goal and destiny? And that's where you start talking about religion, you know. But you have to think about that. What are we intended to do? What's the purpose of our life? Like, why are we here on this planet? And what's our role in this ecosystem? What do we do that nothing else can do? How are we supposed to behave? What's our behavior that nothing else has? I think the answer is obvious. We're thinking creatures. We observe, we reason, and we come up with new ways to manage the resources we have, with the goal of having even more resources, right, to work with. That's what we're here to do. So, that's kind of a long way to say everything that I just said. Eat meat. It's part of who you are. Grow your own meat if you can. Hunt your meat if you can. If you can't grow your meat or hunt your meat, then eat meat that's been hunted or grown by people who are competent and who do it in the right way. I strongly encourage you, if you live out in the city, to find a farmer who raises cows and buy meat from him. Buy meat that's processed by the local county butcher shop, local county processors, the food locker. Buy meat that's raised not on a feedlot, not commercially, that's raised in a quiet, comfortable setting just like this. I guarantee you it'll be a completely different experience. And not only will you appreciate the meat you eat more, but you'll start to understand what it's all really about. So, yes, it's sad. First time I harvested an animal or killed it, it was difficult. It's an emotional experience. But it's part of what this life is. It's part of what happens every day to everything. And we're a part of that. We can't divorce ourselves from it. All right, guys, you have a great day. Take care, and bye-bye.